instead of taking all of his resources and trying to fight juvenile crime, which is just through the roof in DC, particularly carjackings. Just this week, you had Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar, who was carjacked. That is being driven mostly in part by juveniles who know that if they get arrested, Schwab will not prosecute them and just put them back on the street. So instead of actually spending resources to prosecute these juveniles and bring down the crime level, instead he is prosecuting conservative nonprofit organizations. Nonprofits are generally governed and policed by the states in which they're incorporated in, right? And neither of these nonprofits that Leonard Leo runs are incorporated in the District of Columbia. So Brian Schwab was reaching outside his jurisdiction to attack conservative activists solely because of their ideology. In the meantime, juvenile crime is through the roof.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story is going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with commentary editor Conn Carroll. Conn, juvenile crime is on the rise dramatically in Washington, D.C. So surely the D.C. Attorney General must be laser focused on this issue and spending all of his time on it, right?
One would hope so, but one would be wrong. So you have Brian Schwab, who is the D.C. Attorney General, not to be confused with the U.S. Attorney, which is the person in charge of prosecuting adult crimes. But the D.C. Attorney General is in charge of prosecuting juvenile crimes. And he also has a number of other responsibilities enforcing civil law. And so instead of taking all of his resources and trying to fight juvenile crime, which is just through the roof in D.C., particularly carjackings. Just this week, you had Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar, who was carjacked. That is being driven mostly in part by juveniles who know that if they get arrested, Schwab will not prosecute them and just put them back on the street. So instead of actually spending resources to prosecute these juveniles and bring down the crime level, instead he is prosecuting conservative nonprofit organizations. In this case, two nonprofit organizations run by Leonard Leo, who Schwab believes he's using the funds of these nonprofits to enrich his already existing consulting firms. Now, look, whether or not Leonard Leo is running these nonprofits as efficiently as they can, that is a good public policy question. But nonprofits are generally governed and policed by the states in which they're incorporated in, right? And neither of these nonprofits that Leonard Leo runs are incorporated in the District of Columbia. So Brian Schwab was reaching outside his jurisdiction to attack conservative activists solely because of their ideology. In the meantime, juvenile crime is through the roof.
Right. And, speaking of illegal activity, the White House this week sort of falsely claimed, as the Washington Examiner pointed out, that part of its deterrence strategy for illegal migration is creating all of these new legal pathways for migrants to enter and stay in the U.S. How does that square?
Well, I mean, if your store has a shoplifting problem, if you held a giveaway for free stuff, would that cause people to shoplift less?
Probably not. No.
Probably not. And that's exactly what's happening with immigration. So you have these programs in which the Biden administration is letting a certain number of migrants apply for spots in this parole program, where they are then allowed not even to go past the border, they're allowed to fly over the border directly into the United States. And the thinking is that if we let more immigrants in legally, that less will come across illegally. But that's just not how migration works.
Right.
How migration works is people from a community in another country come here, they have success here, and they tell their relatives, everything's working great, you should come here too. So the more people you let in, the more people are gonna wanna come. And that's exactly what we're seeing. As Biden has brought in over 500,000, over 500,000 people through this parole program, which is blatantly illegal, that's a whole nother video, the numbers of illegal immigrants caught crossing the border has only gone up. It was a record back in December, and it almost broke that record this past month. And the unofficial numbers that people are leaking out now, so that this past September was the highest month ever for illegal immigration in this country.
And finally, Biden, famously campaigned in 2020 on never building another inch of the racist border wall. And now we learned that DHS has actually requested to remove regulations because they need to build a border wall that quickly. What's going on there?
So this is a flip-flop, definitely. He promised not to build another foot. Now he's building 20 miles.
It's actually a barrier, not a wall this time, though.
Okay.
So
Sure. I don't think that's what they're going to hang their hat on. But ultimately, they're just trying to do the bare minimum here. So there was a 2019 appropriations bill that said a pot of money was supposed to be spent on building 20 miles of border wall, and it had to be spent by the end of fiscal year 2023. which by the way was 4 days ago.
Right.
So he was actually supposed to spend the money and build this wall by the end of by Saturday, and he's just now saying that he's going to begin the process of waiving regulations to build it. So this wall is not going to be built.
Oh, well, that's too bad. That's a disappointment for you personally. Conn, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more writing from Conn and the rest of the commentary team at washingtonexaminer.com.